that in? Yeah. Hello and good morning, good creative morning. Thank you very much for the host. Thank you very much for having me here. Really nice opportunity to talk to you today about climate. But what actually Jürgen already said is that I don't talk about climate, that the weather is changing or how it changed in a couple of years. I want to talk about climate in companies, and especially the creative climate. So I talk about today why startups shouldn't grow up and how to build actually a creative climate in companies. Who am I? My name is Frederik, like I said, and a creative researcher at the University of Potsdam. I'm working there as the chair of innovation management and entrepreneurship. And what I'm doing is I try to find out what actually changing in startups, the creative climate in startups, the performance, and how can we keep being creative, and how can we actually be more innovative or keep being innovative. So this is like, maybe you're familiar with this model. It's called like the left brain, the right brain. And you probably all the right brains. You're all creative persons, but the scientists and mathematics are the left brain persons. And I am actually in the middle of both, because I'm a scientist and I try to find out what makes us creative and how can we foster our creativity. But before I want to start actually my talk about climate, I would like to do a small task. Hopefully you found on your chair a paper and a pen. And I would like you to draw your neighbor. And you get 30 seconds to draw your neighbor. If you don't have a pen, because I don't have a pen enough, but maybe share your pen somewhere, that'd be nice. Okay, are you ready? So yeah, show your neighbor your drawing, please. Yeah, did I hear sorry? Yeah, I heard a lot of sorries. This happened all the time when you're doing this with adults. You heard a lot of sorry, a lot of laughter, some of them embarrassed, you can't show this one, I'm really sorry about that, I really can't draw. And it's always doing the same. But when you're doing this with children, they don't really care about it. They say, okay, here, show, I'm really proud of my drawings, let's see it. I draw you very well. That's what happened with children. And Pablo Picasso, he said once, every child is an artist, but the problem is how to remain an artist after he grows up. And exactly what happened with startups. If you think about startups, they're in the beginning really creative. They have a beginner's mind. They work hard, they're flexible, they change something, they fail, and they really try to be creative, they're innovative. They don't really focus about the product, they really don't focus about anything operational. They just want to be innovative as much as they can and want to build a really great product. But when the startups grows up, they become adult. They become really focused, close-minded. They don't talk to each other anymore in the same way they did before. They don't really be creative anymore. They want to be focused on optimization. They want to be more effective, efficiency. They want to be something else. They don't really have the beginner's mind anymore. And that's with adults as well. Because when we're children, we don't really care about all the stuff which won't work. We try it out. At least we try it. We don't think it's wrong to do something. There's a nice story which I have recently that's about the children drawing a picture, and the teacher came to the children and said, what are you doing there? And the children answered, I'm drawing God. And the teacher said, nobody knows how God looks like. And the children said, wait a minute, I show you guys. And this is always like what you think about children. They don't really think it's wrong. But what is actually, how can we really be creative, and how can we building a creative climate in a company? And it's actually really quite easy to build a creative company and remain a childless startup company. And it's like between the 4 P's. I don't know if you heard about it, and research is quite common. It's called the creative person. It's the first one here. You have the creative product, the creative process, and the creative press. The creative press means the environment, where we are actually, which kind of space we are, what of leadership we have, and so on. And the creative person is the first thing. We all are creative in our mind. We're all creative, and we can be more creative. But if you want to be a creative person, you have to be aware of 3 different things. One is to be motivated, which is really, really important, to be motivated. But not just motivated like I get money end of the month, like extrinsic motivated. You have to be intrinsic motivated as well. That means I want to do it because I love my work. I want to do it because it's a really good thing. I want to have the freedom to generate my own ideas, to be open to other things. That's really important. Another thing is to be the expert in your field. For example, when you're a designer, you have to be a really good eye. You have to be really artistic. You have to look for something else. You have to always try to learn, to be better in your own field. And another one is like the creative thinking. Because normally we think about, okay, I have the problem, I think like this way. But there's a technique to be a creative thinker. And the technique called the double diamond model. And a double diamond model is quite easy. First, we start with with everything else. It's called divergent thinking. We can think about anything, really. There's nothing wrong. We can think about how can we come here back to our office, and we say we take a jet, or we come up with a boat, and so on. There's nothing wrong. And another step is to think about convergent thinking. That means we narrow something down. We think about, is it actually possible to take a jet somewhere? Is it possible to take a boat? Maybe not, but we get the feeling in the beginning that we can be really wild, really open to new ideas, and then we narrow the things down. Another thing is the creative process. Maybe you're familiar with this process. I think that most of them. First we start, the work begins, then we say, fuck it off. Then panic, shit, I have to actually hand it in tomorrow. Then we do all the work, and then we have the deadline. And that is actually the creative process which we all involved in the most of the time. But there's the creative process which is quite easy. Because if you start your creative work really structured, you come up with much better ideas. First you just have to say, okay, what is my problem? How can I come to the end? Then the thing is like to work in as much ideas as you can think about. There's nothing wrong in the beginning. Just think at 100 ideas, 200 ideas, as much as you want. And another thing is, which is important, is in the middle of the creative process called incubation. I'm not sure if you heard about incubation. Incubation is a time which you don't work on a problem, the time when your mind is wandering somewhere else. For example, taking a shower, taking a walk, driving bicycle back home, something else, doing something completely something else, and that will help your creative work. Because in the time which you don't think about the problem, your mind will still working on it. And it's perfect. So it changed my life completely when I heard about that, because I was really studying quite hard, and even the night before. And to incubate is really important to solve your problem. That means you just can go in the cinema, having a good night, your mind's still working, and next morning you come up with better ideas. I think everyone had heard about the tip on the thong, because I don't get the name of the person which I met yesterday night. But if you, for example, talk about something else, then pops up again exactly the name. And that's what's happening with the creative process. You should definitely incubate in between. If you work pretty hard on your problem, you won't come up with as good as ideas if you really follow the simple rules of the creative process. The another thing is the creative product. The creative product is really, really easy to generate, because there's one really nice director in New York, Ferguson. He said, everything which we really think about, any product we have, is a combination of copying, transforming, and combining. And that's all what we have. There's like a myth, it's called like the last really original person or original thing was God, because he generated the world. And everything else we really copied, we transformed, and we combined. And if you think about the really famous iPhone, we think that's really innovation. It's just copying, transforming, and combining of anything else. And the last song is the creative press, which I think is really, really important. That's the environment we're working on. If you think about the picture in the beginning about the cubics and it's gray and we work on the problem, we can't really be creative. We can't be. We have a space. We have to generate something. We have to be somewhere which we think we can be creative. We don't need a fancy building like Google. We don't need a pool table. We don't need this one. We need just a space where you can work creative. And every person has its own technique to work with creativity or work with creative tasks. So for example, someone will say, I would like to work at home because I can be more efficient and creative. Someone will say, I need a big office. Someone says, I need to talk, I need a coffee. And we need to find out which kind of environment we need for being more creative or have a creative climate. And really important is if you work in a company, you need the commitment from leadership. You need something which is like, yeah, I can here generate my own ideas. I can be free with my ideas. I can work as much as I would like to do. And you need to take risks. You need to be you need to follow. You don't need to follow some rules. You must take risks, do something new, and that makes us more creative than just a simple original task. And this is, at least I want to show you one model which I developed in my research, and here you can see the 4 different connections. You don't have to really follow strictly one rule and say, oh, I need to foster the creative person, I need to foster the creative person, process, product, and press. You don't need it. What you actually need is just one simple stuff, and then it will interconnect to all the other ones, which is really cool. So for example, what I say, you need just to have space to take risks. Maybe the company has like 100, 200 euros a month and say, do whatever you like to do with this time, with this money and this time. And then you come up with really good ideas, because then you think, I have the freedom, I can fail. Even the boss doesn't allow it normally. I really can say, okay, after I've taken failure, I really I'm open, I trust my colleagues, and so on. And that makes it a really nice creative spirit and climate, which I think it's totally easy. And there's another one is like, we have a lot of different communication materials, or we can interconnect to each other. We have a platform where we talk each other, and then we can generate even better ideas. And that makes us to my last slide actually already. It's like if you're not prepared to be wrong, you never come up with original. And that means what actually I want to say to you today, if you want to provide a creative climate or want to be more creative, then it's really important to fail, or at least to try out. And if you start in the beginning with the drawing and you're always like, okay, and you laugh and say, sorry, this wasn't my good day, I really not a good drawer, and so on, you can see that we lose this. Kids wouldn't really say sorry about that. Kids would say, yeah, it's the perfect draw I've ever done before. And that's actually what I really want to take you with you. They take risks, fail as much as you can, and be wrong most of the time. And if you go to a brainstorming and you can't be wrong, then you can't come up with good ideas. And the last thing is like there's a really nice brainstorming technique which came up actually recently, for 1 or 2 years ago. It's called brainstorming in the dark. So turn off the light, be somewhere else, because then you won't look in your boss' faces and you say, oh, hopefully I'm not wrong, and he doesn't scream at me. Just do it. Just be wrong and be creative. Thank you very much.